Hagrid was waiting for his class at the door of his hut. He stood in his moleskin overcoat with Fang the boarhound at his heels, looking impatient to start. "Come on now, get a move on," he called as the class approached. "Got a real treat for you today. Great lesson coming up. Everyone here? All right, follow me." For one nasty moment, Harry thought that Hagrid was going to lead them into the forest. Harry had had enough unpleasant experiences in there to last him a lifetime. However, Hagrid stole off around the edge of the trees, and 5 minutes later they found themselves outside a kind of paddock. There was nothing in there. "Everyone gather round, fence here," he called. "That's it. Make sure you can see. Now, first thing you want to do is open your books." "How?" said a cold, drawling voice of Draco Malfoy. "Aye?" said Hagrid. "How do we open our books?" Malfoy repeated. He took out his copy of the Monster Book of Monsters, which had been bound shut with a length of rope. The other people took theirs out too. Some, like Harry, had belted theirs shut. Others had crammed them inside tight bags or clamped them together with binder clips. Hasn't anyone been able to open their books?" said Hagrid, looking crestfallen. The class all shook their head. "You've got to stroke 'em," said Hagrid, as though this was the most obvious thing in the world. "Look!" He took Hermione's copy and ripped off the sellotape that bound it. The book tried to bite, but Hagrid ran a giant forefinger down its spine, and the book shivered and then fell open and lay quiet in his hand. "Oh, how silly have we been!" Malfoy sneered. "We should have stroked them. Why didn't we guess?" I thought they were funny," Hagrid said uncertainly to Hermione. "Oh, tremendously funny," said Malfoy. "Really witty, giving us books that try to rip our hands off." "Shut up, Malfoy," Harry said quietly. Hagrid was looking downcast, and Harry wanted Hagrid's first lesson to be a success. "Right then," said Hagrid, who seemed to have lost his thread. So you've got your books, and now you need your magical creatures. Yeah, so I'll go get them. Hang on." He strode away from them into the forest and out of sight. "God, this place is going to the dogs," said Malfoy loudly. "That oaf teaches classes. My father will have a fit when I tell him." "Shut up, Malfoy," Harry repeated. "Careful, Potter. There's a Dementor behind you." "Ooh," squealed Lavender Brown, pointing towards the opposite side of the paddock. Trotting towards them were a dozen of the most bizarre creatures Harry had ever seen. They had bodies, hind legs, and tails of horses, but the front legs, wings, and heads of what seemed to be giant eagles, with cruel steel-colored beaks and large, brilliantly orange eyes. The talons on their front legs were 1/2 foot long and deadly-looking. Each of the beasts had a thick leather collar, and around its neck, which was attached by a long chain, and the ends of all of these were held in the vast hands of Hagrid, who came jogging into the paddock behind the creatures. "Gee up there!" he roared, shaking the chains and urging the creatures towards the fence where the class stood. Everyone drew back slightly as Hagrid reached them and tethered the creatures to the fence. "Hippogriffs!" Hagrid roared happily, waving a hand at them. "Beautiful, aren't they?" Harry could sort of see what Hagrid meant. Once you got over the first shock of seeing something that was half horse, half bird, you started to appreciate the hippogriffs' gleaming coats, changing smoothly from feather to hair, each of them a different color: stormy gray, bronze, pinkish roan, gleaming chestnut, and inky black. "So," said Hagrid, rubbing his hands together and beaming around, "if you want to come to a bit nearer." No one seemed to want to. Harry, Ron, and Hermione, however, approached the fence cautiously. "Now, first thing you gotta know about hippogriffs is they're proud," said Hagrid. "Easily offended hippogriffs are. Don't never insult one, 'cause it might be the last thing you ever do." Malfoy, Crabbe, and Goyle weren't listening. They were talking in undertone, and Harry had a nasty feeling they were plotting how best to disrupt the lesson. "You always wait for a hippogriff to make the first move," Hagrid continued. "It's polite, see? You walk towards him and you bow. And then you wait. If he bows back, well, you're allowed to touch him. If he doesn't bow, then get away from him sharpish, 'cause those talons hurt. Right. Who wants to go first? Most of the class backed farther away in answer. Even Harry, Ron, and Hermione had misgivings. The hippogriffs were tossing their fierce heads and flexing their powerful wings. They didn't seem to like being tethered like this. No one, said Hagrid, with a pleading look. I'll do it, said Harry. There was an intake of breath behind him, and both Lavender and Pavarti whispered, Oh no, Harry, remember your tea leaves. Harry ignored them. He climbed over the paddock fence. Good man, Harry, roared Hagrid. Right then, let's see how you do on with Buckbeak. He untied one of the chains, pulled the grey hippogriff away from its fellows, and slipped off its leather collar. The class on the other side of the paddock seemed to be holding its breath. Malfoy's eyes were narrowed maliciously. Easy now, Harry, said Hagrid quietly. You've got eye contact. Now try not to blink. Hippogriffs don't trust you if you blink too much. Harry's eyes immediately began to water, but he didn't shut them. Buckbeak has turned its great, sharp head and was staring at Harry with one fierce orange eye. That's it, said Hagrid. That's it, Harry. Now bow. Harry didn't feel much like exposing the back of its neck to the Buckbeak, but he did as he was told. He gave a short bow and then looked up. The hippogriff was still staring haughtily at him and didn't move. Ah, said Hagrid, sounding worried. Right, back away now. Harry, easy does it. But then, to Harry's enormous surprise, the hippogriff suddenly bent its scaly front knees and sank into what was unmistakably a bow.